listening to Physics. My name is Christina, and welcome to another Let's Get Reelz movie review. Today is my segment I like to call What's on Netflix, where I tell you what is on Netflix that maybe you've never heard of, or maybe has a low rating. Today, I'm going to be doing a documentary. I really like the documentaries that Netflix has up on the streaming service, and I found one that is very near and dear to my heart. This review might be a little bit boring for some of you if you're really not into museums or history or anything, but I really wanted to make this because I want to point out what makes museums great and why I love them and why I have a degree in museum studies. So the documentary is called The Great Museum, and it's about the inner workings and goings on in the Kunsthistoriques Museum in Vienna. And this documentary is everything I went to school for. I have a master's degree in museum registration, which is, to put it in basic terms, I have a master's degree in inventory. So when you go to a museum and you see on the gallery label, you'll see the title, the artist, and then a number. So for example, you may see like 1998.17.02, and that is what is called the accession number, and that is how it is cataloged in the museum's inventorying system, which is usually cataloged online, and that allows us to find the item through the computer, and it gives us where the object is and what shelf and what box, and it gives a whole condition report where it's been loaned to, and that is what I do for museums. And right now I'm actually doing that as an intern in the Museum of American Finance located on Wall Street in New York City. It takes a lot to run a museum. There's so much that goes on that a lot of people don't even really know. For example, just the education system alone. When you go on a field trip, you have a tour guide come around. So think back to when you were a kid and you would go to a museum, had a tour guide. That is a museum educator, and there's a whole department for education, and they are the ones that study different types of people that come to museums, different age groups. And because I would speak to a 30-something-year-old differently than I would talk to a little kid under the age of 10, then I would speak to those groups differently. So you have what goes on in the education system. They spoke about that a little bit. They show the director of the museum. He actually steps down, he retires in this documentary, and then you see how exhibits are set up. So what's really cool, if you guys are interested in like graphic design or anything like that, what the exhibition coordinators do is on the computer they recreate the gallery space, so like the walls or whatever have you, like in the display cases, and they design how the paintings are going to look on the wall. I have first-hand knowledge of this because I helped at the Museum of American Finance with their display of the Alexander Hamilton room that they have there. I got to help set up their latest exhibit in there, and the exhibition coordinator had everything planned out with all the artifacts and documents for Hamilton and Burr, whatever had to deal with finance and Hamilton creating the treasury. So I saw that, and that's actually really cool. That's very interesting. It's very helpful. There's whole programs for exhibition design where you can do 3D modeling or 2D modeling, and it helps you figure out where everything goes. And then in this documentary, after they set up the wall and what works were going to go up, they went into the storage to get these paintings. Now the storage, imagine like just a huge fence, just massively tall, and on those chain link fences, that's what they kind of look like. They pull them out of the wall and you just see paintings hanging from them. That's their storage. That slides in and out of the wall, and it keeps the paintings from touching each other and from being placed on the ground, and it's a whole storage process. Now for me, I was like drooling over the storage system because it was just so high end. Now in Europe, their museums are controlled by the government, whereas in America, the museums here are privately funded. So that's why you have, like, if you were to see an exhibit somewhere, could say like funded by Condé Nast and Amazon or whatever have you, and then they'd have like wings. So in the Metropolitan Museum, they have the Nelson Rockefeller wing, which is oceanic art. Those are the people that help to fund the building, whereas in Europe it's just all government run. So it was actually very interesting to hear how they were planning out the museum. They were doing like budgets and saying like, okay, well, this was funded by the Republic in Vienna, the government, and then we can only take from this fund or whatever they had. I think they had like a separate fund for an exhibit. And I mean, it sounds boring, it's financial stuff, and I wasn't really into museum management as much as I am into registration, but it is very fascinating because it takes so much, not just money, but time and knowledge to put together just one exhibit. So I mean, again, I'm going to give you the example of the Met. I think in the Met, they have their costume gala every year. That costs a lot of money, that whole party. But the exhibits, I've been to quite a few of those exhibits, and their technology in those exhibits, the way they have them set up and the mannequins and everything, that's not cheap whatsoever. And the Met, I mean, the only reason they do that is because they have a lot of funding, and it's like, I think about $5 to $10 million to sit on their board, so they can do all that. But like, you know, institutions like the Kunsthistorisch is funded by the government, so they don't really get that much. But again, in Europe, they're more into the arts, they fund the arts, and here in America, we're just like, oh, it's a luxury, we're not going to fund it, which is total BS. There was one scene that I actually really liked in this, and I thought it was great. There was a woman who stood up. She was, I believe, in visitor services. She said that she's been with the museum for 11 years, and every year they've had a Christmas party, but it's only for the museum visitors, like the guest services, like department that they have this Christmas party. She wants everybody to be incorporated, you know, from the other departments, so from like, you know, the paintings department, conservation department, because they all essentially work together. That was her point. They help out each other. So without the art, you wouldn't have visitors coming into the museum. Without guest services, you wouldn't have people, visitors knowing where to go. You wouldn't have that experience of, you know, creating a pleasurable experience for the visitors. And, you know, it's all a big circle. They really do help each other. And I think that's what's great about The Great Museum as a documentary, is that you get to see the visible, which is the setup of the exhibits and what goes, you know, into putting on display these objects. And then you have the hidden, which is the conservators, the registrars, what goes into planning, and all the employees and the director. So you have the visible, and you have the public, and you have the hidden, and you have the working side of the museum. And that's amazing. This is just such an amazing documentary, and it really goes to show you just how important everyone's job in a museum is to bring about this pleasurable experience for the visitors, for the tourists that come in, not just from Vienna, but from all over the world, and how museums are taken care of and how they're updated. And, you know, it's very important. And I just want to say that I reviewed The Great Museum because I really hope, if you have an interest in museums, you do go and watch this documentary. If you have the slightest interest in museums and what goes on into creating spaces, into running it, and you see that these exhibits just don't go up overnight, and that it does take so many people and so much knowledge and carefulness and study to put together exhibits, either temporary or permanent. And, you know, as I said, this is just near and dear to my heart. I love museums, and I would really hope that you guys, after seeing this review, maybe if I did a good job, you go visit your local museum, or you watch this and then after you watch the Great Museum, you go visit your local museum or wherever there's a museum closest to you, and you appreciate what you see and you appreciate all the work that goes into it. It's such a fascinating field, this museum world, and not enough people know about it. If you liked this review / rambling in any way, please give us a thumbs up. Leave your comments down below. If you have seen the Great Museum, if you like museums, let me know what your favorite museum is. I would love to talk about it, and let me know if you're into art history, because I have a degree in art history. Let me know if you're just strictly history, like American history, European history, whatever. Museums, history, all down in the comments. I would love to have a conversation with you about all this stuff. And also in the comments, if there's anything you would like me to watch on Netflix, or not even if it's on Netflix, leave those there. And if I pick your movie and I review it, I will give you a shout out. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for future Let's Get Reels and what's on Netflix movie reviews. And as always, keep watching movies and stay absolutely fabulous.